Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today I want to talk about things I have learned from Jeff Galloway over the years, including talking about his run, walk, run method. Jeff Galloway was a U.S. Olympian. He made the team in the 10,000 meters in 1972. He was also an alternate to the marathon team in 1972. He also was the first winner of the Peachtree Road Race, which is a huge 10K race in Atlanta, Georgia that has gone on for many years. He's also well known for, he started Phidippides Running Store, which was a running store in Atlanta. He had multiple locations, and it was the first running store concept that was franchised. At one time, I know there were like 35 stores across the U.S. I believe they're all gone now, but if you think of Fleet Feet today, Phidippides was the first one that was franchised like that. Jeff Galloway, mostly I've learned things by reading his books, and I was also part of one of his training program for a few years. I was introduced to Jeff Galloway when I very first started running in the late 80s. I went to my local running store and they recommended a book for a new runner to kind of catch up and learn about running and things that you needed to know. And I got the Galloway book on running. This was written in 1984 by Jeff Galloway. It was a very good book. It covered so many different subjects. It introduced you to the training methods. It introduced you to the types of clothes you should wear, picking shoes, the effects, how you should wear your clothes when it gets cold, the effects in how you should slow down when it gets hot outside. Now, I will say the majority of the book was, his advice was based on his experiences and his experiences working with runners through his running store and coaching runners. I don't think it's necessarily science-based, but very practical advice in here, and it gets you very close to where you need to be. It had charts that helped you estimate how fast you should be able to run a race based on another race. Like if you run a 5K, you could look up that 5K time and look across and get an idea what you should be able to run a 10K or a half marathon in. I wouldn't say it was perfect, but it definitely got you in the ballpark. And it also gave you ballpark ideas as to how fast you should do your training runs. In his later books, Jeff Galloway came up with the Magic Mile. The Magic Mile has you go run a mile on the track pretty hard. You're not going all out, but you're running on a perceived exertion level of 8 out of 10. So you're running a hard mile on the track 4 times around. You take your time and you put it into a calculator that he has online. It also usually tells you in some of his newer books how you would multiply the ratio out, but you can put it in the calculator online and it'll tell you your estimated training paces you should run at and what you're capable of shooting for at different distances. So based on your Magic Mile time, it'll give you an idea of what you should be able to run in a 5K or a 10K or a half marathon or marathon. And then it'll come up with and tell you what pace you should run your long runs, what pace you should run your 400-meter runs if you're doing speed work for a 10K, or what pace you should run your miles at your mile repeats when training for a marathon. The calculator has advantages in that it's very easy to get a recent test. You don't have to run a race like you did in the tables recently. It'll give you like a current snapshot of your condition and what your paces should be. It also allows the times to be more standardized, where if your target is a 47-minute 10K, the tables in the book only had 45 and 50, but this will give you your estimates for going for a 47-minute 10K. So I think there were big advantages. I think it gets you pretty close. In the beginning, he says in the book that he actually got most of his training ideas, and the training program he built was based on Arthur Lydiard. Arthur Lydiard is a famous running coach out of New Zealand that coached lots of Olympic champions. He wrote most of his methods in the early 60s. The idea was that you did a long, big base building period with lots of easy running. Then you would have a hill time, a time where you would spend some times with some hill training, and then at the end you would do interval training. Now, Arthur Lydiard mostly worked with elite level athletes, so the interval training was super intense. When Jeff Galloway wrote this book, he said he wanted to take Arthur Lydiard's strategy and apply it to everyday runners. And I think that's pretty much what he did. So it's the same sort of program in there. Most of, like, his 10K program is 29 weeks long. Well, a lot of that is base building. If you already had a base, you could probably start further along in the program. The same thing with the marathon program. I think it was pretty well starting out from zero, and it was a 32-week long program. The schedules in here, because you have limited space, showed 5-minute increments. Like you had a target of a 40-minute 10K, there was a schedule in here. If you had a 45-minute 10K, the schedule is in here. If you had a 50-minute 10K, and if you wanted to do something in between, you kind of needed to make the calculations yourself. All of his interval training was kind of standardized. If you were doing a 10K, he had you running, back in the time of this book, it was 440s, what would now be a 400-meter one lap around the track time, and he would specify what time you would need to run if you were targeting a 45-minute 10K, what pace you should run your 440s on the track when you got to the interval section. So he would do 440s for the 10K, and he did mile repeats if you were training for the marathon. So the estimates were there as to what you should hit for each of those time targets. I think they're pretty close. So many of the things in this book were very practical advice and got you close to the mark. I wouldn't necessarily say they were scientific or perfect, but they got you definitely close to where you needed to be. Some of the things that I have learned from Jeff Galloway, the primary things from this book, I learned about periodized training. I learned about that included base training, hill training, speed work. I learned a lot of just general practical things to know, like how to dress in different weather conditions, that you needed to slow down when it gets hot. I don't necessarily agree with how much he said you needed to slow down in this book, but it basically was teaching you the basic concepts as to what you needed to worry about. It also talked some about how to fit shoes and how to select shoes. I think some of that may have been updated. This was version 1 that was written in 1984. He's written a version 2 and now a version, edition 3 that just came out in 2021. And I know this edition actually didn't talk about the run, walk, run method, which is what Jeff Galloway became famous for as being a proponent of. He, in 1996, he came out with a book specifically training for marathon, and this started talking about using the run, walk, run method. In the original book that came out in 1984, he made one reference to run, walk, run, and he basically just said that he had heard from ultra running friends that he knew that you could extend your distance by taking a 5-minute walk like every 25 to 30 minutes. That was the only mention. As time has gone on, he developed protocols for people to alternate running and walking. And the first book that I think he put it in was this marathon book. When we took the marathon training program that he put on, they talked about, depending upon what your target was and how fast you ran, you would do walk breaks every so often. So like I was shooting for a sub 4 hour or 3:45 marathon or something. So we were running 9 minutes and walking 1. But when we were increasing our distance, we were running 5 minutes and walking 1 minute. He's updated his recommended amounts run walk ratio quite a bit. I would look on his website for that, or look in one of his current books. But I have found the run walk run method particularly useful. It works great for new runners trying to build up their distance. In that it reduces the stress on your body, because you're able to give your body a little bit of a physiological break from the running motion and the repetitive stress of hitting in the same way all the time. You're able to shift every so often, give yourself a rest. It also helps if you're in a low heart rate training method, which I actually think a lot of us should spend a lot of our time in a low heart rate, easy training mode. Like the MAF method keeps your heart rate below your max aerobic function. The polarized training, things that are recommended by Dr. Steven Seiler, talk about spending 80% of your time in a low zone. And then for some of us that get older, running quite a bit more at an easier pace and with less impact on the body, I think it is very useful. And you can run slow and do it without the run walk, but run walk, I think, helps you keep it in that zone and keep it in the easy pace. It also allows you to run a little bit harder when you're running, and then walk and bring your heart rate down. And I've had to do that since my heart attack 3 months ago. I've needed to keep my heart rate low, so I just find it easier to insert the walk breaks. It's also been invaluable to me to be able to increase my distance. In his marathon book that he wrote in 1996, he estimated that if you were to do the run walk from the beginning of the run, a 20 miler, you could do 20 miles and it would feel like, to your body, as far as soreness and impact on your body, it would feel more like doing a 13 to 15 mile run straight through. And whereas I have no scientific evidence, I would say that has been how I have felt it has worked for me. I was able to, my first marathons that I ran, I would come back when I just ran straight through. I got to where I could hardly walk for a few days. I had trouble walking down the stairs. Once I moved to the run walk, I recovered very quickly. I would feel pretty good in a day or two. And it has definitely helped me with my ultra marathons, being able to do a lot of my long runs with less impact on my body. So I have found run, walk, run extremely beneficial. And I think it's something a lot of runners should consider. That's all I have for today. I hope you found the information useful. If you like the video, please consider hitting the like button. If you're interested in more of my content or following along with this series, where I'm going to talk about what I've learned from different training methods, please consider hitting the subscribe button. And other than that, I hope you're having a great day and keep moving.